What's going on, guys? My name is Julian Jung. I'm the host of the Blockchain Brief, where every episode we are interviewing innovators and founders in the blockchain and crypto space. Today, I'm really excited to have a good friend of mine, David Wachsman, the CEO and founder of Wachsman. Now, Wachsman, for those of you that do not know, is the largest blockchain PR agency in the entire world. David, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Julian, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. So let's jump right into it, right? Tell us all about your background. How did you get into the blockchain space? I want to hear that whole story.
So I was doing regular old PR in New York City, leading day-to-day ops of a boutique agency. And in early 2014, I was at a party at Sweet and Vicious, which is in Nolita. And I met a guy at the bar who happened to be the CEO of a Bitcoin exchange called CoinSetter. And it turned out CoinSetter was one of a few Bitcoin exchanges. Bitstamp existed back then. Coinbase was in a very early iteration. I don't even know if they had an order book at the time. But there were only a few exchanges that existed. And he thought that PR might be able to help distinguish them at a time when there weren't that many different distinguishing characteristics between exchanges. So I started working with him then. And so I've been in blockchain for about a little over 4 years now. We did a darn good job for him. And he became my professor on all things Bitcoin. When you're working with a Bitcoin exchange, you have to learn how wallets work. You have to learn how mining works. You have to learn how FX works. You have to learn the difference between professional traders, retail traders, institutional traders. You have to learn what a fixed API is versus a REST API. And so I learned quite a lot about Bitcoin, about trading, because I had to. And I got hooked, obviously. And Jaron, he was the CEO, kept kicking me until I finally founded my own agency. And so in late 2015, I started the agency with a blockchain-focused VC as a client called Block26, a software wallet called Airbits, a hardware wallet called Trezor, and through that also Slush Pool, which is the first mining pool ever, a Bitcoin ATM network called CoinSource. They had 3 little ATMs at the time, and of course CoinSetter, which was a Bitcoin exchange.
Fantastic stuff. And so let's dive right into a little bit more about your firm now, right? So what do you guys do? And I'd love for you to clarify a little bit more around sort of the mystique. Obviously, there's a ton of mystique when it comes to PR, right? So what do you guys exactly do in this space?
Yeah, so we've gone from that one-person shop and was basically one person till February of 2016 to now we're soon to have 90 employees between New York and Dublin. And we do really just 2 things. We do blockchain-focused public relations, but actually certain subsets of that, and I'll get into that in a minute, and event management and consulting. So the PR part that we do is primarily focused on media relations with some other things that we have to do for our clients because it's helped them with content creation. But the vast majority of what we do is media relations. That means we are the in-between between technology companies and real media. That means traditional media that you see every single day. People can call it mainstream, trade press, crypto press. And this is very important to note. Blockchain is a very horizontal technology. So if you could be a fashion company that's embracing blockchain, and you need to therefore appeal to both blockchain media, mainstream media, and to, in this case, fashion media. And so because we work with so many different clients, we have approximately 70 right now, we work with many different subsets of media. Moreover, we work with real media globally. So it's not isolated just to the United States or to Europe. We work with media all over the world. So our people are very busy. It's a very labor-intensive job. It requires pitching out our clients and saying, hey, we think the story might be interesting, many times all over the world, and striking out a whole lot. We strike out a lot, but we have a lot of really smart people who are really dedicated to this and extremely good at their jobs. And as a result, we tend to do very well for our clients.
Great answer there. So let's talk about successes that you guys have had, right? Like if you just go onto the website, first glance, you can tell that you have an incredible roster of companies that you've worked with in the past. But would love to have you dive in a little bit more about the companies that you've worked with. What's the DNA for success here for PR, right? And then what are some of the KPIs that you guys really look at to measure that success?
So to us, by far and away, the most important KPI is, are our clients successful? That's what matters most, because we're going to be an ingredient in their success. It's at the end of the day, this is all about them. We hire people whose job it is to make other people famous. We are not even the background of the story. And it's our jobs to make sure that we can tell and crystallize really complex stories for our clients and tell it in a really interesting narrative way. So for instance, a client like Dash, we started working with Dash in beginning of July of 2016. So it's now been 2 years that Dash has been our client. During that period of time, Dash has grown and grown and grown. I think it's a crude measure, but by market cap, and as I say, this is a crude measure. I don't think market cap is a good way to value projects. But Dash went from a $45 million coin to a multi-billion-dollar coin during this period of time. With Dash, it actually matters more than with other projects because Dash has what's called a treasury model and a governance system where masternodes vote, and they basically can vote on proposals. So that market cap allows for the treasury to be larger, and the larger treasury means they can fund more proposals. So it matters more in that case. But the point is that during that period of time, Dash has graduated. The types of stories that we can tell for Dash are different today than they were in July of 2016. Back then, they were basically a payments coin that certainly had a lot of development behind them and had some great technology, but they didn't have the type of partnerships, for instance, that they can go and wield today, where they can get rewards.com, for instance, to be a partner of theirs. This allows for much more mainstream attention. And for instance, Dash core CEO Ryan Taylor was just on Fox Business, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, because it's much more appealing today to the audience now that Dash has become much more significant. Our clients range from startups to real enterprises. We have clients that are billion-dollar companies now or more, and they sometimes require, I don't want to say a different level of sophistication. At the end of the day, startups require world-class work too, but they have, I'd say, different expectations, and you have to work with them in a different way because they have a corporate culture. You know, we come from crypto. We're not OG. I think 2014 is not early enough to say that, but we've been around a while, and I'd say we do have enough cred to work with crypto projects, with real crypto, but we have to also work with the corporate world too, because that's where this is going.
Got it. Makes complete sense. So I think it's definitely arguable that you guys see more deal flow than even a lot of the VCs in the crypto space, right? And so, I mean, I certainly get hit up a number of times for people trying to get me to introduce them to you. So I'm curious here as to how do you evaluate projects, right? Like you guys see so much, like what's that process for which ones you take on as clients?
So we got more than 250 requests this past month, for instance, for do PR work for them, and that's quite a lot. So the advantage there is because we see so much, we have, I'd say, a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's going on in the crypto space. That benefits all of our clients, and I think that benefits reporters too. We know what's newsworthy because we know what's new, we know what's interesting, we know what's different. We have to, because we keep seeing all this information, and as a result we get to help tell better stories for our clients. And this is imperative because at the end of the day, we don't do pay for play, we don't do advertising, so we have to go and try and sell a story to reporters. And what that means is the story has to be something interesting and newsworthy, something preferably never seen before and never done before. And how do you know the difference if there's so much noise out there? Well, you probably have to have a lot of information in the first place to make that type of decision on a consistent basis. So in terms of how we diligence our clients, because we spend a lot of time doing that, one way, of course, is through qualified deal flow. If I'm seeing Game Theory Group sending me something, I'm going to say, God, these guys see a lot of stuff. They've got really high standards. They invest in great projects. They do a lot of diligence themselves. I feel safe knowing that this is probably a high-quality project. And we, of course, have to do a conflict check and determine whether or not it's something that we think is newsworthy. And then our other big constraint, of course, is do we have the capacity? Because although we're growing and growing and growing, I'm soon going to have 6 people doing nothing other than hiring people internally. It's just not possible to scale fast enough because at the end of the day, the crypto space has grown from less than $6 billion when we officially founded the agency to some $350 billion today. And nobody can scale that fast. Not as fast as me.
Yeah, no, those are really, really great points that you brought up. And one thing that I thought was rather interesting was sort of the trends of the stories that you're talking about here, right? So I'd love for you to touch a little bit more on that. Like, what are the stories that these different outlets are look like, right? Because as you mentioned, it seems like a lot of the stuff is sort of the same thing over and over and over, and we're kind of seeing the same type of projects come out again. So it's like, what are the stories that media really looks for today?
So if you simply have a theoretical project that has no technology, that's probably not newsworthy. If you have no partnerships or no one who's going to use, for instance, let's say you have a token, no one is using your token, again, that's a problem and probably not newsworthy. Reporters would prefer to see real brands embracing technology, real partnerships. They're sick and tired of hearing just that an advisor joined a project that's probably not newsworthy anymore, because that story's been told too much. You need to find something that's really new. So right now, there's a lot of focus on security tokens, for instance. And I think that if you start to see that the banks, this is always a good story, is banks are doing something related to crypto. People have been telling that story since 2012, and it always works, or at least it usually works. But I think that we're starting to see other sectors doing it too. If we start to see more insurance companies embracing blockchain, whether they're startups like Etherisk or they're giant companies as well, I think that's going to be interesting. Seeing real, tangible use cases of this technology is what reporters want to see, because they want to write about something real. And the good news is, as we see, as Julian, you and I see every day, this is becoming more and more real all the time. There's a lot of really great projects out there. I'd say on a rate basis and, of course, a nominal basis, many more today than there were 6 months ago or a year ago.
For all of our viewers, especially projects, rewind that part and listen to it over and over, right? Because again, I completely agree with you on all of those points that you just made there. So let's dive into it, right? So what are some interesting projects that you guys are looking at right now?
Well, we just started with a project called Oliseum, which is very cool. It's a sports social network where the support stars come to you. Basically, it was created by a lot of the top stars from FC Barcelona. And these guys actually have really embraced crypto technology. You'd think it's impossible, but among the co-founders is Kevin Mitnick, who's one of the most famous hackers in history. It's I think, really exciting, and they're going to see a lot more stories there. There's a project called Orvium that we're now working with. Orvium is made up of a team of CERN and NASA scientists who are trying to accelerate science by making peer review faster. That is a remarkable thing and a really good use case for crypto as far as I'm concerned. And of course, you're starting to see decentralized exchanges. I think that's another big story right now, becoming prominence. 0x is an incredible protocol. Radar Relay, we love, and they're kind of launching right now too. So you're seeing a lot of exciting stuff happen right now, and I think you're going to see a lot more in the near future.
Great stuff there. And so, if a company is unable to engage in sort of a firm of your caliber, right, or in a PR firm in general, what are some tips that you can provide to them to get better media coverage?
Yeah, to your point, PR is expensive. And the reason it's expensive, if you're doing it right, is because you have to put a lot of educated, sophisticated people on the case. As I mentioned earlier, you strike out a lot. There's no way every reporter is going to love your story and want to write about it. In fact, most of the time they won't, and for good reason. They've got other things to cover. You need to find the right reporter at the right time who's interested in your story. And even then, they have every right to be skeptical. They should be. So you're going to strike a lot, and it takes a lot of time. So how can you, if you don't have an agency, kind of cut through that? I'd say the best way is line up partnerships. I mean it. Line up partnerships. Find people, other organizations willing to say, we like this project. We think it's something exciting. We want to embrace it, and we want to do it in a public fashion. Now, what does that mean? When you're negotiating your MOU or your pilot or your production-ready project with them, try and make sure to insert a clause saying that you can write a press release against it and get their express written approval on it before it goes out the door. That is really imperative. If you don't get that, it's very hard to go back to the table and say, hey, in addition to the fact that you're going to be working with us, would you mind being in a press release? Because that might not work. That makes it harder for you to actually go and get the newsworthy news you need, and that's going to make it harder for you to get coverage. Beyond that, I make sure to do a really good SWOT analysis of yourself. A lot of projects actually don't do this. I think they do, but I hear all the time from projects where when I'm talking to them, I say, well, you do know that this is very similar to X, Y, Z, A, B, C. So take a look at who your perceived competitors are, not just who you think your competitors are, but who's someone who's not a great, incredible expert in your project. Who would they think might be competitors? Find out what coverage they're getting and try to maybe target reporters that have written about that before. Do not expect immediate results. That's not how PR works. It's not immediate. You need to build over time. But if you target reporters that care about stories similar to yours, if you give them newsworthy news and you just keep your foot on the gas pedal, over time, you're going to get results.
David, that was a fantastic answer and extremely, extremely insightful. So, before we wrap up here, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about kind of what I'm seeing in the conference scene. I think this is really cool. We're seeing more and more super high-end professional conferences, And this is, to me, a reflection of the state of the industry. So I like to think back to December 2015. I went down to Inside Bitcoin San Diego. And there I saw the most remarkable thing I'd ever seen. It was Patrick Byrne getting on a stage and saying that they had basically created something that would allow for shares to be issued, their own shares to be issued over the blockchain. Really remarkable as a speaker. But adjacent to the speaker room, or the auditorium room, was the exhibit hall. And there was only like 4 or 5 booths at all. And of those, like 3 of them were free booths. So people only paid for 2 exhibit booths. This was in December of 2015. And I mean, I made a joke at the time saying, because people always like to write the story, it's like a meme, that Bitcoin's dead, and here's the proof. That's exactly what they would write if they walked in that exhibit hall, which was cavernous and hangar-like, and there were like all these tables, not even with tablecloths, and these 5 or 4 piddly little booths. Now you go to conferences and you're seeing them completely sold out. Consensus had 8,500 people show up, and I'm pretty sure they could have had more. You look at Token 2049, you look at Lend It, you look at Money 2020, you look at these super high-end conferences, Token Summit, and they're super popular. A lot of people think that they're getting the same people at all the conferences. I think you're getting some of that, no question, but I'm meeting a lot of really interesting people at these conferences. You just need to go out there and network, and it's going to be worth it. And I think you should really go to those booths and meet companies at those booths, ask them hard questions, and you may actually get some satisfactory answers. It's surprising.
David, very, very incredible. Again, this is extremely insightful. I appreciate you coming on the show today. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll be in touch very, very soon.
Julian, thanks so much. Appreciate it.